Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we are getting political, which is something that I promised I would never do, but it's not in the way you think. Today, we're going to talk about how political views and beliefs change as you age and as time progresses and you experience different parts of life. Because I think it's really interesting. I think it is a really important topic right now because everything seems so politically, you know, left or right, this or that, right and wrong. And I just think we need to take a step back and realize that a huge amount of the reason we believe the things we believe is because we either have an incentive to, we were indoctrinated as children, or we have experiences, counterculture. There's all kinds of reasons why. But I think a huge part of it has to do with aging and your personal experience. I mean, obviously, but I think it's something we should talk about because I'm seeing so many people who are like, oh, I would never talk to someone who has this belief. I would never associate with this kind of person. I would never date or get married to this kind of person. And I just think like it's getting to a point where I'm a bit scared of the political tension. And honestly, it all seems a bit overrated. So I should first note, I am not a left-wing person. I am not a right-wing person. I like to think of myself as politically homeless. I have beliefs on both sides of the political spectrum. I live in Canada, so I'm not an American. I don't have an opinion on the election coming up or on those kinds of things. I have like personal opinions on like who would I want my daughter to marry or who would I want this person to be associated with. But I don't have this like political stance one way or the other. I will say that I'm probably a bit more economically conservative than most people would think. And obviously I am a bit more socially liberal in terms of like human rights and that kind of thing. Growing up and being gay kind of does that to you. So we're going to talk about that as well, personal experience and how that shapes your political view. So with that large disclaimer out here, I would like to try and make sure that the comments stay respectful. I'm a YouTuber that does stuff about spirituality and loving yourself, giving yourself the credit, learning to be okay with your flaws and striving every single day to be responsible and a net positive impact on the world. So I'm really hoping that the comments can stay nice. We're gonna see. They're YouTube comments. You guys have always been amazing. So I think there'll be interesting conversations to be had. That being said, I'm going to start with the least controversial thing, religion. He said very sarcastically. I remember listening to a talk by a very well-known thought idea person who basically said, if you grew up in India, there is a very good chance that you would grow up with Hindu beliefs and values and, a worldview shaped by that particular religion. Same as if you grew up in Saudi Arabia, you'd have a different persuasion altogether. You would probably embrace Islam and the religion and how it teaches and its ideas. And in the West, depending on who your family are and where they come from and their beliefs, you might grow up thinking that there is no God, that there is no religion, that it's all silly people fighting each other and it's all ridiculous. Or you might grow up in a fundamentalist Mormon house or. And the point of this is that your beliefs about where we go after this life is over are heavily shaped by what you're exposed to. Your parents might be fundamental Christians, but in high school, you might be exposed to the ideas of atheism or nihilism or any of the, different philosophies around the world. And it might really capture something in your heart from your personal experience, from what you've dealt with, and you might really embrace it. So although, your parents were fundamentalist Baptists or whatever, you might come up with an entirely different worldview and an entirely different set of morals and characteristics that you choose to live your life by. But your fundamental upbringing will shape a whole lot about you. I know many people who are ex Latter-day Saints, who are atheists, who grew up as Baptists. I know a lot of people who grew up in religious backgrounds who are not religious in the slightest now, or maybe they've embraced an Eastern philosophy, or they're spiritual but not religious. But these people are still heavily shaped by their upbringing, heavily shaped by their parents and the beliefs of their parents and grandparents. And you can clearly see that. I think you can spot an ex-Mormon from a mile away. They just have a very specific way of speaking and acting and behaving, and it's not a bad thing. It's just quite obvious, to me at least, as someone who has experienced a lot with the Latter-day Saints. So this is to say that it is a view, it is a belief about the world that has been shaped by your experience of other things in it. And so now if we get into the politics and those kinds of things, I think politics now is obviously incredibly polarized. There is a set of beliefs that, especially if you're my age, there's a set of beliefs that if you don't exactly subscribe to, they call you a neo, I don't want to say it on here because I have tried very hard to keep this channel monetized, and I don't want to be demonetized. But if you have in any way, shape, or form views that are considered right-wing, it is very easy to pigeonhole you into a very specific category. I'm not saying I hold these beliefs because, like I said before, I'm politically homeless. But even the way that I'm being so incredibly careful about how I'm talking about this shows that it really matters, especially in the social media culture that we have. Your political beliefs really shape who you get to interact with and who views you as someone who is acceptable or not. I grew up with a girl who became pretty radicalized in terms of right-wing ideology, and anytime this girl gets brought up in conversation, it's like, oh yeah, she's insane, and she's just been she's a fairly nice human being. I don't think she's ever burned anyone at the stake. I don't think she's ever gone after people, but she has this intense reputation that I think a lot of us decide to steer clear of, and we don't want to be associated with for various reasons, because obviously we don't want that and we don't believe that. But at the same time, it is incredible that obviously her upbringing and worldview and experiences have shaped who she is and what she believes. And that has a huge impact on who interacts with her and who decides to, call her out or stand up against her or join her. And it's interesting that we really do hold these things against people. And you might be thinking of course we do. I don't want to be associated with people who believe this or that. But what I'm trying to sort of highlight is that the only reason that that person believes that thing is because of their experience, because of what they have seen. Maybe they haven't been given a proper worldview. They haven't been exposed to people of different backgrounds, different ideas. Maybe they have lived in a small town in a rural part of North America their entire life. And so the idea of anything outside of that normal realm is scary to them, And so I'm not calling for people to all grab hands and get over their differences, but I am asking you to kind of be aware that the only reason these people believe what they believe is because they are in a sphere of influence based on the media they consume, who their parents are, what language they speak, their interactions. A single bad interaction at the mall can shape your entire worldview. I grew up with someone who had a very bad interaction with a dog at a young age. My family is huge dog people. This girl could not be in a room with a chihuahua. She was absolutely terrified of every single one. And I used to really dislike her for that. I always thought oh, she needs to get over it. It happened when she was 6, come on. But I don't have that experience. My experience with dogs since I was born has been absolutely amazing. I've had 20 different dogs, loved every single one of them. It's always very sad when a dog passes away. But That's my farm boy experience. It's been nothing but roses and beautiful things, you know? I've been attacked by a dog, but it still didn't shape my opinion because I had this huge experience with good dogs, with amazing interactions, with good snuggles. And so to somehow judge her for disliking dogs based on her own experience, that's not fair. I think we all understand that. You know, we all understand that it's not fair to judge someone based on their own experience of something. So why do we allow it in the politics, you know? And like I said before, I'm not advocating for you to jump on their side of the fence and, start marching in Germany, you know? I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is the understanding that people have these experiences and these cultural upbringings that shape who they are and determine what they believe. And it's not okay to hate people just because they have these beliefs. It's better to explore, it's better to question, it's better to sort of involve yourself in who they are and give them that good experience that they need. You know, I think a lot of people on both sides, the ultra conservatives and the ultra liberals, I think both of them have had bad experiences with each other, and neither of them are willing to meet in the middle. Neither of them are willing to sit down at a meal and openly discuss beliefs and go, hey, like, why exactly do you think you believe this? Um, I always say I'm never really interested in what you believe. I'm interested in why you believe what you believe. You know, I'm not interested in the big show at the front. I'm interested in the backstage stuff, how it works, the mechanics and the mechanisms that determine exactly why you believe what you believe. And that is such an interesting question. You know, if you're ever stuck at Thanksgiving or in a room with someone you know has fundamentally different beliefs than you, it is so much more interesting to ask them, hey, why exactly do you believe what you believe? You know, I'm not interested in you telling me like the principles of hating the LGBT group or whatever. I'm not interested in that. That's not my thing. I'm interested, why did you come to this? Like, what did you have a bad experience? Is it just something that you're scared of? There are so many aspects of this that can be discussed in a constructive and an interesting way. And it gives you a more nuanced understanding of why people believe what they believe. And it gives them an understanding. It's like, oh man, this person who I fundamentally I'm supposed to dislike this person, but they took an interest in me and why I believe what I believe. Maybe you'll change hearts and minds. You never know. So it's an interesting thing. I thought that this was pretty self-explanatory for a long time. I always thought, I grew up thinking like, oh, well, you only believe what you believe because you grew up here and your parents are this and you do this. But apparently this is not a well-known idea that, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your ideology, it's all shaped by your own experience. And sometimes people really embrace what they were given in childhood, and sometimes people really run away from it and go, no, like, oh my God, I grew up in a house that was so strict. I'm going to be such a chill, laid back parent. And the final thing that I want to touch on is as we age. As we age, these things change quite a bit. They always say, there's that quote, and I know it was associated with Churchill, but it's been associated with a lot of different people. So don't say that it was Churchill, because I think it was a lot of different people. But the quote goes something like, if my son isn't a liberal by the time he's 20, I have failed. If he's not a conservative by the time he's 30, I have failed. And it's the idea that younger people are more liberal, more socially open, more interested in new experiences, different cultures, languages. It's this idea of young people wanting to rewrite the history or do things differently. You know, we've seen lots of protests and lots of different ideology being touted, and it's interesting that a lot of it is coming from colleges and universities and young people who are questioning things, who are going against what their parents might believe. And you might be thinking, no, they've been indoctrinated by the universities. Maybe they have, but they're still questioning belief. They're still questioning the status quo and the norm. And that's what young people always do. Like, they always seem to be questioning these things and going, I know we've always done it this way, but why? Why can't we do it this way? Little kids do this too, when they go into the why phase where they're like, why? So I know a lot of people have like vitriol towards like the universities and things like that. But as someone who's university educated, it's pretty easy to spot when a professor or when someone in the university is trying to indoctrinate you. Like, it's pretty easy. It's pretty obvious. And most young people are somewhat conscious of this, especially if they're in university. They can understand that. Some choose to be radicalized and some choose to go down like a very communistic path, which is interesting. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea, but there you go. But as they age and as we age naturally, I think we do tend to move to a stronger form of conservatism. That's a word. I hope. But, my grandparents were, by modern standards, quite liberal, but by some other standards, quite conservative, especially economically. So it's just kind of something that happens as you age, as you change from a young, fiery, ideology loving person. You kind of age and you go through and you pay taxes every year and you look at how the government is not doing things as good as they should be. And you slowly start to go, oh, I understand why I don't want high taxes. I understand why I want the government out of these things. And then suddenly you take a more conservative viewpoint. I can see how that happens. I can understand how people become more conservative with age and how they look at things and go, oh, actually, I don't really like all of this stuff. Man, I was a radical little kid. But we all were, we all had these views. So I just think you really need to be a bit relative when it comes to people's beliefs. And in the same way that Christians are always telling you to hate the sin, not the sinner, you can dislike the belief, but the person themselves is a human being and they're capable of change. They're capable of thought and cohesive understanding of world events. So to really hold liberals against something or to really hold conservatives against something, they only believe that thing because it's either super beneficial for them to believe it, or they were indoctrinated, or they decided that this worldview really goes with, like, jives with them. So I don't know. This is just a little rant about it's all relative. It's all dependent on someone's belief and what they think and how they view things. So getting super like aggressive with them and angry and starting to dislike them for their own beliefs, it's as crazy as hating someone for hating dogs. Maybe they had a bad experience. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I'm interested to see what the comment section turns into on this one because I think it'll be fine. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you've made it all the way, you're amazing. I really appreciate you. And let me know what you think. And as always, guys, say it with me. I will talk to you tomorrow.